Om Sairam. Anyatha Sharanam Nasti. Tvameva Sharanam Mama. Tasmat Karunya Bhavena. Raksha Raksha Janardhana. O Lord, please show mercy on me. As there is no one but you, I prostrate in front of you to kill all my sins and seek your blessings. One should ask a question to oneself. How do I surrender myself to God to obtain His shower of blessings? What does it mean to completely surrender to God? To surrender in spirituality and religion means that a believer completely gives up his or her own will and subjects his or her thoughts, ideas, and deeds to the will and teachings of higher power. Because at its core, surrender requires vulnerability. It's upturned palms and bowed heads, and us on our knees. One is defenseless, unable to flee, an action that indicates the seeker's absolute and utter surrender to the power above. What happens when we surrender with our whole body and soul? It's being able to let situations be experienced. It is a feeling of openness. To create anything, we have to be in a state of surrender. If one if one can surrender, infinite possibility becomes real. Many could have a question. So, does surrender mean giving up, show a certain weakness, or be considered a failure? The answer is yes. Because when we surrender to the supreme power, it is acknowledging that we have limited power over person or situation. It is letting go of one's own effortful attempts at control over your life. Therefore, surrender to God is considered to be the greatest requirement of every religion. In spirituality, surrendering means that a believer completely gives up his own will and subjects his thoughts, ideas, and deeds to the will and teachings of a higher power. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna clearly says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. It is enough that one surrenders oneself. Surrender is giving oneself up to the original cause of one's being. Do not delude yourself by imagining this source to be some God outside you. Let us now remember 7 points when we surrender to God through prayers. Prayer is the first step to surrender. Second, prayer changes our perspective. Third, prayer shifts our focus to our Creator. Prayer is a direct line to God. Prayer places our plans before Him or her as we seek direction. Prayer reminds us to rely on him or her. Lastly, prayer allows us to seek his or her will. Yogis and thinkers choose one of the two paths for achievement. In the Bhagavatam, the story of Gajendra Moksham illustrates the power of surrender. Only after Gajendra surrenders himself to God and prays to be saved, the change in the tenor of his prayers reveal the secret of total surrender. Earlier, Gajendra relied on his strength. In the next, he asks him to come and help him. In the last phase, he gives up all and totally surrenders himself to the Supreme. We can also remember Bhishma in the Mahabharata, who shows that absolute surrender can be combined with jnana as a path of salvation. Now, surrender and jnana are the two paths that lead to moksha or salvation. Between the two, the former is far easier to follow than the latter because surrender will come easily to anyone. But rigors of achieving jnanam are much more. The following story will illustrate this point. The story is about two fish living happily for a long time without any worries about their existence. One day, both the fish were caught in the net of a fisherman and could not escape despite their best efforts. They knew that with sunrise, the fisherman would come and collect them, and that would be the end of both of them. To find a way of escape, one fish began to pray and humbled itself so thoroughly that it became smaller and smaller till finally it slipped through one eye of the net. The other fish began to imagine itself as the Atman and the Paramatman. In the process, it began to get bigger and bigger. Ultimately, the net could not hold the weight. It tore, and the fish achieved its escape. Thus, each of the fish representing human souls achieved salvation, one through surrender and the other self-realization.
साईं तेरे चरणों में कोटि प्रणाम, साईं तेरे चरणों में कोटि प्रणाम। शरण में ले लो साईं प्रभो, शरण में ले लो साईं प्रभो, साईं तेरे चरणों में कोटि प्रणाम। तुम हो मेरे माता पिता साईं, तुम हो मेरे माता पिता साईं, तुम हो मेरे बंधु सखा, तुम हो मेरे बंधु सखा, तुम हो मेरे सब कुछ साईं, तुम हो मेरे सब कुछ साईं। दीजो हमको चरण तुम्हारे, दीजो हमको चरण तुम्हारे। साईं तेरे चरणों में कोटि प्रणाम, शरण में ले लो साईं प्रभो, साईं तेरे चरणों में कोटि प्रणाम। तुम हो मेरे माता पिता साईं, तुम हो मेरे बंधु सखा, तुम हो मेरे सब कुछ साईं। दीजो हमको चरण तुम्हारे, दीजो हमको चरण तुम्हारे। साईं तेरे चरणों में कोटि प्रणाम।